Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2469. Today we're at a very special place, Revs Institute. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm back in Naples, Florida, and you know what that means. I'm at Revs Institute with a very special guest by the name of Scott George. Scott, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have any gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
Mark, nice to be here. I'm ready.
You're always ready with all the cool automobiles that you get to enjoy and play with and take to events. Now, before I break the ice with I break the ice with this question, and then I'll give you a proper introduction. What's one little thing that people don't know about you, Scott?
Well, I thought about this a little bit. I am thinking about this a little bit, but I think it's really that people know me for I like to play with cars, have played with cars, grew up around cars, but they don't know that I like to cook just as much. I'm as comfortable in the kitchen as I am around an automobile. So
nice.
My little hobby's cooking in the kitchen.
Is there a type of cuisine that you tend to steer towards that you enjoy cooking?
Well, I probably my best is soups and stews, and then but I do a lot of the holiday dinners as well.
Nice.
That's sort of.
All right. Well, I'll hang around for dinner then. That sounds like a plan. Sounds tasty, especially although we're in Florida. Although you guys have gotten a little cooler temperatures than normal. I've seen a little bit, but typically it's beautiful down here. So a soup or a stew sounds pretty good. It's a little chilly where I live. Not terrible, but rainy. I'm in the Pacific Northwest, but I always say that's why our trees are green and very tall. They drink a lot. So there you go. So let me give you a more proper introduction. Scott George is the Executive Vice President of CH Motorcars and Curator of Collections for Revs Institute here in Naples, Florida. Widely regarded as one of the top automotive museums in the world, Revs Institute is dedicated to the study of the automobile and offers visitors an exceptional opportunity to view over 100 of the most influential automobiles of our time. Scott takes care of the automobiles, manages the in-house restoration workshop, and ensures the vehicles participate in international events. I've seen some of your cars at events. Spectacular. Scott is a member of the National Advisory Board for the Automotive Restoration Program at McPherson College in Kansas. Had a bunch of people from there on the show, including the dean. And he is on the Rolex Monterey Motorsports Reunion Advisory Council, place I've raced. He is a member of the Collections Committee for the IMS Museum and judges regularly at the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, in addition to other international concours events, including Chantilly, Arts and Elegance, Richard Mille in France. This guy gets around. We'll be back in just a moment, but first a word from our sponsors, so give them a little love. Buckle up. We're at a very cool place today. We'll be right back. Are you ready to take charge of your financial future? Then let me introduce you to Capitalize Your Finances. It's an online course designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools for mastering your money. This course will help you lay out the ins and outs of budgeting, the importance of emergency funds, investing strategies, and how to plan for a secure retirement. All this presented by financial planner Chris Paniotu. Chris has developed this course to help you effectively navigate your world of finance with confidence. Stop stressing about money and start taking control. Enroll in Capitalize Your Finance online course today and pave your way to financial success. To learn more, go to capitalizepodcast.com/courses, or better yet, go to the Cars Yeah website, show notes page for today's show, and click on the link under Capitalize Your Finances. You'll be glad you did. Do it today. Hey, guess what? Some of you regular listeners will remember back in 2019, I created 10, 11 shows called Cars Yeah TV, where I went to some fabulous locations of past Cars Yeah guests, and we did a TV show about it. Well, they're up on the Cars Yeah YouTube channel. So go check it out at YouTube. Just type in Cars Yeah, and the shows will be there for you to enjoy. I hope you have fun watching. For several years now, you've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine. I've been a subscriber since the start. They're talented and creative team brings you a spectacular publication and website that shares the automotive passion from a worldwide perspective. Linkage is about driving, restoring, collecting, and firsthand experience at collector car auctions and more. They bring you real-world values plus rational, experienced opinions on the current markets. They cover the automotive world and the people who share our passions. And Linkage Magazine has grown, mailing you 6 issues annually. Join me on this journey with Linkage. They're geared for the automotive life. You can subscribe at linkagemag.com. So, Scott, I'd love to talk more about Revs and what you have going on. But before we do that, the question you must receive a lot is, how did you get here? Because you are in one of the most prestigious places, surrounded by the best of the best. And when you say you get to play with cars, you get to do a lot more, obviously. Oversee the restoration, the quality, the assurance of all of the parts of the cars that you have there, and take them out and share them with the world, which is what's great about Revs. But how did you get here?
Well, it's I've been here now 35 years.
I know,
Mark.
You must live in the back there somewhere, right?
Yeah, I was. People will say to me, they often say to me, "How much do you pay to work here?" Because it's such a great place to be surrounded by great automobiles and collections. I worked in the car field. My father was a mechanic when I was young and did go-kart racing and then ended up teaching in some vocational schools, and so did my grandfather. Ended up teaching in some automotive vocational schools. So I kind of grew up in a car family and used to ride around on a go-kart seat in the back of my dad's, I think it was a Willys Jeepster at the time, or something, and sort of go to the go-kart races. So I always had an opportunity to play with tools and cars and carburetors and things. Thankful to my father for giving me that opportunity. So I ended up going into the automotive space and went to vocational school for a little while myself, and I'm going into the automotive space at a Porsche Audi dealership in Alfa Romeo at the time in Sewickley, Pennsylvania. And then had an opportunity there to, besides working on the day-to-day automobiles, had an opportunity to get into doing some sports car racing. We were doing SCCA racing, and so I got involved in that and became the engine builder and the car builder and the mechanic and the guy that would travel with the cars to the races. And we ran a couple of cars out of the dealership, and that led to some more historic, led to 24-hour and 12-hour sort of racings coming up through the ranks a little bit in sort of those limited pro series that were running back in the time. And then I had an opportunity to get an introduction to Mr. Collier through a mutual friend, and said that he was going to be doing some historic racing. Would I like to come up and help him crew? And he was working in the Watkins Glen area. And I think they were going to be at Mid-Ohio and in a few areas up in the north, and I was in Pittsburgh then. So I had the chance I said, sure, I'll come out and crew. And I had a chance to meet Mr. Collier, and Bruce Jennings at the time was still driving and working with us, or working with Mr. Collier in his cars. And I had a chance to see this amazing, cadre of Porsches, the Spyders and 908s and 917s and 914 6GT, and sort of fell in love with that aspect of things that were beyond my normal world. And that happened. I did that for 2 or 3 weekends one year, and then the following year I actually had a chance they invited me down the facility was opening up in Naples, Florida here, and they invited me to take a position here, and I actually turned them down in the beginning because I was kind of happy doing what I was doing. And long story short, 9 months later, I suppose, my father had been terminal cancer and passed early at a young age, and so but thankfully I got another call. I was and I got another call. They said, "Are you sure you don't want to come down here? We're really looking for good people." And so I ended up coming to Naples, Florida, and saw this beautiful museum that had just been built and opened, and saw at that time we had 75 cars, and I just sort of fell in love. And I said to myself, what did I almost
missed. Yeah.
Almost missed. So I've been here ever since, and it's been great.
It's amazing. I mean, it's really a great story, and I'm so happy where you landed. Obviously, they love you there, and you love it there, so it's a match made in heaven, as they say. I've always thought of and I know you guys think of yourselves this way, Revs Institute is much more than a museum. It's a place where, as you guys say, you foster a new level of understanding of the automobile, not only in technology, but as its agent for social and economic change. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about some aspects of the museum and the facility, because as I introduced you, there's two entities here, CH Motorcars, which is the car side, the restoration side, as I understand, and of course, curating the collection and how they blend together so nicely. But before we get into some of the new things that are happening at Revs Institute this year, I want to kind of start a little bit about what it is in your mind and in the group's mind there, the team's mind there, of what is Revs Institute really all about? What are the missions?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think our mission is, in a short statement, is to preserve the future of the past, or preserve the future of our automotive past, and really we do that through our extensive library collections and maintaining those and acquiring collections that help to tell automotive history across the last century and more. We have 12,000 square feet of library space here and another 5,000 square feet of library space down the street. So we've got a large library that we really are really proud of, and working to digitize and bring to life and share those. Those materials are available to the public at large, and we let people, researchers, enthusiasts, scholars, are allowed to come in and do research on premises. But we also do research for people around the world on a request basis. But that led us to really, even through our own work on our own collections here, the photographs are such a rich resource that for all of us, and that we began many years ago now acquiring photo archives and collections, and we felt that because it was important for our own cars to really understand all the histories and things, and then we realized, well, there needs to be a greater resource and a shared resource in this. So we created what's known as the Revs Digital Library, and now we've got over 700,000 of those images.
Oh my gosh!
Up online, and they're free for viewing, and people can buy a copy and download and use it for their own purposes, or for editorial purposes, or even for commercial in some cases. So, but that has been a work in progress for over the last really 12 years or so, and really grown into that. And we've got another 1.5 million or so images to digitize. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us there.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about was what you guys call the Active Matter Lab, or Active Matter Series. What is that?
Well, yeah, so that's really something new for us. It is the active matter is a term Mr. Collier used in his book, The Archaeological Automobile, and really that's not just a term that he came up with. It's an archaeological term often used, but we're considering active matter as our automobiles are active in the world. One of our goals is to keep these automobiles out and running and being seen and being heard and being experienced from the viewer's point of view, and introducing them to new audiences, younger audiences, the next generations. But it also is something that's important for us because it keeps the cars running well and running appropriately. We try to use best museum practices. We develop a lot of methods and things in-house to try to make sure we're safely bringing cars back online to run, and safely sort of doing all the post-mortem work, if you will, to put them before we put them back away. And so we're working really hard at that. But the active matter side of it is a series that we thought we'd create a series around. We started one with the Cunningham C5R, which was known as the Smiling Shark. And the idea on this is to create a series. The cars do go out and be used, and we thought, rather than just show simple Instagram posts and says, let's create something special where we can chronicle what goes into bringing the cars out, doing the maintenance, getting them prepared to go out, having them out on the track, and combine that with some historic materials and some other images and imagery, and turn it into a short series that people could hopefully fall in love with. And it also introduces them to our practices and our processes, but also some great automobiles along the way. The other side of that is that we thought we'd create an active matter lab here in the museum, and really create a space where we can devote, even though we have a workshop connected to us here that's about 12,000 square feet, we decided that we would place and build an active matter lab up on a mezzanine level off of our lobby that would allow us to create a place where we can actually do conservation work and some minor restoration work there and assembly work, and right in front of interactive exhibits in front of our audiences. And we hope to capture that on some live stream and as well. But that's something that we want to do. We're always working on the automobiles in our shop. We're always developing conservation methods and practices, working with conservators to help us with that. But one of the things, it's always back in the back. And obviously there's certain things that can't be done out in public just due to maybe the nature of a solvent or something like that. But we're going to work through that, and we're going to do as much as we can on display, and looking forward to that.
Very cool. I also want to talk about something that is somewhat new this year. Andre Van Bever, I understand you met him, I think it was 2002 at Spa, and his work. You learned about his work, and now we get to see it at Revs Institute?
Well, yes. I mean, we're very fortunate that we get some new collections coming in still. And this is a photography collection. Andre Van Bever was from Belgium. He was a photographer that I actually was introduced through friends and learned of his collections there. And we ended up acquiring some images of our own cars that he had in his collection that would have raced at Spa and places like in Le Mans, and places that he would have been to in the day. And then I had an opportunity to go over to Spa in 2002 with John Lamb and Dan Gurney, and we took the 1967 Eagle, the Grand Prix Eagle, over, and we did a video and an article for Road and Track at that time, and it was just an amazing experience. And I met personally Andre at that event, and he was such a kind guy, and Paul Ferrer was there, and it was just a great evening. We had dinner together, and it was just a remarkable opportunity for me. And so years later, when Andre had passed, his widow, Nicole, and a good family friend, Etienne Bourguignon, reached out to me and said, Andre's work is available. Would Revs Institute be interested in it? We'd be honored if you would. And so we had an opportunity to acquire it, and I went over to Belgium and met with Nicole and Etienne, and it was an amazing collection. So that collection has come in. We're getting ready to, we're going to announce it publicly here very, very soon, putting out a release and also a short video piece on that as well. And then we'll be digitizing the images and put them on the Revs Digital Library and create access to them. And we hope to also create some traveling exhibitions with the prints from the collection as well.
Wow. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Spectacular.
Yeah. Andre was really covered from the late 1940s era through the mid 1970s. So it's really a rich part of automotive racing and hill climbs and rallies as well.
Absolutely. Now, is there anything else happening in the future this year, at least at Revs Institute, that we didn't touch on?
Well, besides, we talked about the Active Matter Lab, and we'll be out participating in events again. That we take that very seriously here. We had a sort of a extra remarkable year for 2023, where we had the centenary of Le Mans and the 75th anniversary of Porsche and so on. And so we are cutting back a little bit, but we expect to be out with cars at all the major events that we have. We'll be definitely at Monterey and Pebble Beach, back out again. We'll be creating some of our Active Matter video series, as I mentioned. That'll be our year ahead. We'll really be looking to sort of create some really memorable and great content from our opportunities with our cars out at events, as well as the Active Matter series that I was mentioning. Other than that, we'll be doing some small exhibitions here in-house, and as Lauren mentioned the other day in your program, we've got this great opportunity here now with the Peterson Museum's GT40 Mark III, that is really here now sitting alongside our Mark I GT40 and a Mark IIB GT40. So we have the three GT40s together, and that runs through July. So that's created a great pedigree pony exhibition there, short-term exhibition for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll remind listeners, and we'll talk about this again at the end, you can go to the Revs Institute website, revsinstitute.org, I believe. Do I have that right?
Yes,
and
correct.
You can get tickets in advance. Please do plan in advance, and you gotta go. And this time of year is a good time to go to Florida, I'll tell you. It's a little chilly in the rest of the country, so we're always envious of your guys' warmth. I wondered if you have what I call a driving inspiration, someone that's been very influential in your world, in your life, somebody maybe a mentor of some kind, but somebody that really helped you move through your career path.
Well, yes. I mean, I honestly, having grown up in a car family, like I mentioned, but I also got into the car world at a very young age because I had this training, if you will, growing up. I always had mentors. And so I always was the young guy in the room in the shop or at the track. One of the things that I think it was my father or really my grandfather taught me was, hey, just pay attention, listen, and you can also learn a lot more. So I've had great mentors throughout my career that have allowed me to really I think, grow at a very quick level beyond just learning on my own. But over the last 25 years or so, it's definitely been, Miles Collier, and Mr. Collier's really had an opportunity to really, given me an opportunity to really grow within the organization here. And he's been very much a mentor in my life. I can't thank him enough for the opportunities that I've had. And then we're surrounded by also such a great group of volunteers here. Naples, Florida is a retirement area, among others, but we have an amazing group of volunteers here from various backgrounds. And they're also mentors as well. They're so great to help to give back and provide. But Mr. Collier is definitely my major mentor for the last 25 years.
I can only imagine. I'll remind listeners that Mr. Collier was a guest on this show when he came out with his book, which we'll mention again a little bit later, but you already mentioned that. I was so fortunate to get to talk with him and have him share more about why he wrote that book and how he put it together. It must be a great person to be around, along with your fantastic team. And again, if you missed my talk with Lauren Goodman, go back and listen to that. I like to ask what I call the challenge question, Scott. And it's really not to drum up a really challenging time. It's really more about sharing with others that when we go through these things, we learn from them. And many times it's good to embrace those failures. I think it was the racer Niki Lauda that said, I learn a lot more from races I lose than I win. Yeah, most definitely. So is there one in particular that you went through when you look back down and you say, I'm kind of glad I had to deal with that?
Well, I will say one in particular, I suppose, would be when I was growing up and working on my teams, I became an engine builder. And one of the things that taught you to have perseverance was you thought everything was great until it wasn't. And when an engine blew up,
well said. Yeah.
it let you down. But I'll say that there have been opportunities for failure that really it's the opportunities that I had during my career that it allowed me, and how I reacted to failure is something that really is more important to me. I started thinking about this and thinking about what is one particular instance where it was a notable sort of failure, if you will, to learn from. But I had, but things get you down. I mean, we've been in many races where back when we were racing, not just for fun, where you'd get down to the last lap, to the last you're in the lead, and something goes wrong and you lose. And after a 24-hour period or a 12-hour period or whatever it may be, you just don't know how devastating that can be. But you gotta pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again. So that earlier career prepared me for opportunities here. When we're doing restorations, or you're bringing cars back to life, and you'll spend in some of the cars, we do a lot of preservation and conservation, as you know, but a restoration can take 4 to 5 years, and it can. And when you get into the middle of these restorations and you find a major hiccup in the parts that were supposed to arrive were wrong, or something was mismachined, or the leather that was run through the grain it didn't come out quite right, and we've got to redo it. But so I don't really have one failure for you, Mark, but just to say that
a lot in this world.
Well, being involved in over 40 restorations over the last 35 years, there's something coming up all the time, and you've got to be prepared for it. You've got to react to it, and you've got to move on and learn from it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's for sure. I think that world, restoration world, and then you add the racing world combined, you got the best of two worlds and the worst when it comes to opportunities for challenges. But I love your comment of if you learn how to react to it in a different way. And I've always said that when something happens to you, stop, take a breath, and say, well, what did this just teach me? Versus, oh, woe is me, or the thing just blew up, or it went wrong. What did it teach me? What did I learn so that going forward I can share that with others, but more importantly, not do that again if it was your own fault. But
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness, yeah, you live in the world of opportune to learning. I'll just put it that way.
Learn something new every day.
You do, for sure. I ask this question of all my guests, and that is to share one special vehicle. And you have lived, my goodness, your whole life around special vehicles, and the last 35 years around some of the most spectacular special vehicles when it comes to history. Is there one special vehicle story for you? And this could be a car you have or a car that you've worked on or been around or raced.
Well, yeah, there is, and it may seem insignificant to some, but it's very significant to me, and it's really a 1973 914, and it was I used to build racing 914s, and we were pretty successful with those in my early days. And my father had a road-going 914, and after he passed, that came to me, and I've had the car down here now in Florida. I brought it out of Pennsylvania down here in Florida for over 30 years, and I've only driven it about 3 times, and so it was because I've just been busy with life and everything else. So anyway, I've restored the car and I brought it back. I've made it into sort of my own. I've done some modifications to it. So I've stiffened the chassis and we're doing a nice engine for it. It's to be a 2.6 liter and about 4 cylinders still, but about 200 foot-pounds of torque. And actually Jake Robbie is helping me with that engine. Nice. Which are really special. So that's my car. It's my father's car. I'm bringing it back to life. It wasn't too bad to begin with, but I'm making it my own. And it's home in my garage right now, and it's painted, and the wiring harness is going back in it. So that's my. I'm in the middle of a restoration.
Yeah, a long one. Well, this is great. You and Jeff Zwart, when he was on the show, he's been on a couple of times, talks about his 914, and you think of all the cars he's been around and has, and that's the one he always goes back to. And it really is, that's why this question is great, to the relationship the car has to somebody in your life, almost more than the car in many, many cases for everybody. And that 914, we had a 72, a 2.0. Actually, I bought it to be my son's first car, and I made the fatal mistake of not asking my wife if she thought that was a good idea. And she walked out and went, "Are you crazy? Look at this thing. Some lady in an SUV is going to run right over the top of him. There's no airbags. You can hardly see the car." Well, anyway, my son did get to drive it a bit, and we ended up doing a little work and selling it and using that money towards a safer 3 Series BMW with airbags and a newer car. But those cars I love. And I tell you, when I was driving that one, we had it for about a year. You go into gas stations and many people, especially younger, would go, "What is this?" They just had never seen one before.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I love them. They're great to drive. And boy, that motor you're going to put in that thing, it's going to be killer.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. I honestly can't wait. We've got a lightweight VW Beetle here. It's a hot rod. It's another story for another day for you. But it's got one of it used to have a 4-cam Elva Porsche engine in it, but which was very exotic. But I'll tell you what, we put a Jake Robbie 2.6 liter in it, and it's a rocket ship now, and so it's a lot of fun to take out. So I can't wait to have one of the same.
Yeah, I think some of these engines these guys are doing, like John Wilhoit, he built a Beck Spider that I ended up buying that had one of his modified. It was actually a 56 Speedster engine that he modified, but he's doing that 2.2 liter now. He's putting in 356s and Rod Emery's hot rod cars. And the 4-cylinder kind of 911-ish engines that are being built. You can do some fun stuff. So I've changed my attitude on some of these. I used to be a purist, and now when it comes to some of these cars, when you drive them, you'll go, "Okay, I'm not going back to that 75 horsepower car. No way." So
yeah.
Nice. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, well, thank you. I agree. There's a time to be a purist, and for those of you that are purists, don't worry. This car had a little bit of blemishes, and so it had a part of a life that I allowed me, I think, some leeway with that. But I know exactly what you mean.
What's the color of that 914?
Well, it's a modern Porsche color, and it is I think it's called sapphire blue metallic, and it's
beautiful.
It's a 2018-19 color, but it's a pretty special color.
Awesome. Great. So here's a bit of a psychological study with you today, Scott. I play psychiatrist, if you will. Crawl into your head a little bit. If you were reincarnated as a vehicle, now this isn't what you want to be because that's way too easy. We all want to be, F1 cars or something sleek and sexy. Now, you could feel that way about yourself. Nothing wrong with that. But if you were manifest as a car, reincarnated, what would you be and why?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. I went up and down and around on this,
Good.
and I'm going to go. This might surprise everybody because this is well before my time, but I would be a Type 35 Mercer raceabout.
Ooh.
So we've got a 1912 here in the collection, and it's a pretty special car. But it's these are the cars that look like a buckboard on rails, but they have an amazing engine and really great handling for their day. And so bare minimum necessities, great power, sometimes carrying way too much speed, but only rear brakes. So I don't slow down easily. It's hard to stop me sometimes. Relatively easy to hand crank and fire up, but sometimes kicks back if you don't respect it. It's
Yeah.
but it's easy to keep going and maintain with simple tools and a little gas, a little oil, and be ready to go. I love experiencing, and this is different than your question, but to experience early cars is something to me that is so special. But so I put a lot of thought into this, but I think it's simple, fast, but it's me.
Well, see, that's why you've been there for 35 years. Perfect match. You're in your element. So there you go. I think that's great. I got to spend a day on a tour during the Ironstone Concours in a 1911 Indy 500 race car. And you talk about buckboards, pumping the pump to keep the fuel pressure up as the gentleman who races the car was driving it. I'm thinking, I tell you, race car drivers are I raced vintage cars for a long time. I always felt pretty safe, although one of my cars wasn't very safe. It was a 1960 Lotus Formula Junior in 18. But driving those things in a race, oh my gosh. Yeah. Respect.
Yeah. Respect
Big
for
respect. I like to ask about how people like to give back. And I want to go back to Revs Institute because that's to me, that's the basis of the mission of Revs. Is that how you see it?
Oh yes, absolutely. We're not in this for any other reason other than, providing, preserving historic materials and automobiles to provide, a resource to people going forward. And we don't really need to take these out and share them, but it's part of our mission. And we want people to engage. We want to engage with people. We want to see them light up. We put young people in the seat and what do you think? And try to nurture some of that next generations as we can. We have interns here in our workshop. We try to have interns every year. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we try to because we want to, again, have people experience that. But it's very much a part of what we do. We actually had an intern come in from Brazil this last year. He wrote a really great letter, and a young guy came in and was really just wonderful to be with. But we're trying to make sure we can reach as many people as we can through what we do at the Revs Institute, and that's part of the reason also why I'm still involved with the McPherson Automotive Restoration Program as well, because I want to try to reach more people, this next generation, and bring them into our fold here.
McPherson's great. I've had the dean and several other people on the show, including some students who've talked about their experiences and so forth. So I love what they're doing there. Obviously, when we ask about great books, we got to mention Mr. Collier's book, and that's why he was on this show, The Archaeological Automobile. It's just a spectacular but it belongs on every automotive enthusiast shelf. It really does. It's just incredible. Is there another book, though, that we can have you recommend, maybe?
Well, yes. I'm staring at my office full of books here
Yeah,
as well, and I'm right next to about 27,000
Oh.
volumes in the library
My
as well.
goodness.
But yeah, I thought about this, and there's a couple that if you don't mind, and
Yes, go ahead.
But Shop Class is Soulcraft.
Yep.
Matthew Crawford's book. I bought one for everybody in the shop. I bought a copy for everybody here, and we buy them and give them out. I think that's just great. And there's another book that I was introduced to years and years ago, but it was called Restoring Museum Aircraft, and that was by Robert McKesh. He was the former conservator for the Smithsonian Air and Space. And it's just, if you're in the car world and you can resonate with the thought and what went into the thinking. Of course, they didn't fly the museum aircraft, but the accuracy and the authenticity they put into their work was pretty special. And so I love that book, and I've also bought those for friends and for the workshop as well. And then real quickly, Inside Track, the Phil Hill book. You can get the 2-volume or 3-volume, but we knew Phil very, very well. I knew Phil. I was very honored to know him, and his images in there, they're just spectacular, I can't. I've got a copy at home, and I just pull it out once in a while just to stare at the great photographs.
Yeah.
And then because I'm a Porsche guy, last book is really Excellence Was Expected by Carl Ludwigsen. I mean, if you're a Porsche guy, you got to have that volume in your archive.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned several people there, the authors who have all been guests on the show. I got to meet Phil a long time ago when I was racing here at Pacific Northwest, and he was the honored racer. They always brought a famous racer to the show, and I got to actually sit across the table from him along with my 8-year-old son and have lunch. And
Wow.
just a wonderful guy. My little brief interlude with him, a half hour eating lunch, but I kept saying, man, I can't believe I'm here. And of course, I've had his son on the show as well. So, wow,
Right.
wonderful. Those are great books. Thanks for recommending those. So before I let you go today, we're going to go on the ultimate drive. I like to enable my guests here. I'm going to park anything in your driveway. You can take it anywhere. Now, in your case, it could be a race car too. So if you'd like a specific race car to take to a specific track in the world, I'll make that happen. Or you can take a car and invite someone, even somebody from the past that's no longer with us, which opens up a world of opportunities for what I call ultimate drive. So what does that look like for you?
Boy, I thought about this a lot. I've been very fortunate, very, very fortunate that I've had a chance to work with some of the best drivers in the world, and some are not with us anymore. And I won't mention, there's so many names to mention, there's no sense getting started, but we've had various guest drivers driving our cars at Goodwood for over 30 years and in Monterey and other places. So I've had this opportunity to be surrounded by greatness in that driver respect. But I really think that in this case, I would love to have my 914 done and have it up in the Blue Ridge Parkway someplace on the tail of the Dragon area, and love to have my father with me and me sort of driving and my father alongside me and telling him about what I've been able to do those last 35 years.
Wow, wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah, spectacular. I love it. I love it when that question is answered that way. It just means the world. Lost my dad almost 7 years ago, and he's the one that got me into cars. The first old car he bought was a 49 MGTC. And even though I was only 5 years old, I felt like a big kid sitting in that car because of how low those doors come down. You can actually put your elbow up on it if you're a little guy, which makes it special. And those were cars that a lot of the famous people that you and I know about started racing. So, there you go.
Right.
Yeah, even the other day I had a guest on the show, Lee Raskin, who actually worked with Mr. Collier way, way back on a race, in a race event. And he was talking about, he writes a lot of books about James Dean, and of course his Speedster and his Spider, and that his first race car was an MGTD, which I didn't know.
Oh.
There you go. Got to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
Cool. Could you leave us with some parting words of inspiration or wisdom before we part ways today?
Well, what I often say to young people, that how can they get into doing what I'm doing, or how can they get involved in this world? And I just say, put your foot in the door and sell yourself. Do the right thing always. Work hard, listen, and be kind, and the doors will open for you. I really do think that. They did for me, and I've seen it happen to others. And so I'm a simple guy in that respect. And then finally, my good friend, Rich Taylor, always says, and oh, by the way, never lift. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Another guy that says that is Bruce Meyer. So yeah, never lift indeed. Best way to learn more about Revs Institute is the website, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, revsinstitute.org, or the Revs Digital Library has its own website, and you can just Google Revs Digital Library. It'll pop right up very easily. And you can find us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook as well. Revs Institute YouTube channel will have more coming up later this year.
Listeners, if you are in Florida, you've got to make a trip over to Naples and see Revs Institute. My hat's off to everyone there and what you guys do there, because it's just so much more than a museum. So nice to get to talk with you today. I want to do a shout out to our mutual friend, Cindy Meidel. She's the one that got Scott on the show. And I have to hand it to Cindy because I've been wanting to get Scott on the show for a long time, and she pulled that rabbit out of the hat. So thank you, Cindy, for doing that. Scott, thank you for taking a little break in a very busy and spectacular life that you've created for yourself and sharing with the Cars Yeah listeners. Until you and I talk again, I'll see you at the Revs Institute.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome. Cars Yeah is proud to support our veterans, which is why I've teamed up with our nonprofit partner, TechForce Foundation, through its Veterans at Work Military Transition Campaign. The tech shortage is very real, and our country needs skilled, qualified techs to keep our cars, trucks, airplanes, and fleets rolling. When so many vets build their skills in maintaining and servicing vehicles when deployed, TechForce helps transition those skills to jobs as professional technicians when they come home. Learn more about TechForce Foundation and its Veterans at Work Military Transition Fund at techforce.org today.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.